We welcome you once again to our series of conversations with those involved in University of Texas athletics here on TexasSports.com. My name is Craig Way. Glad to have you with us, and very pleased to be joined by Longhorns head baseball coach David Pierce. I feel almost hesitant to bring this up, but the weather this weekend in Morgantown is supposed to be in the high 50s to low 60s and no rain. So we were all supposed to be in Morgantown this weekend for baseball, and so leave it to being that the case, because when we were there 2 years ago, we got affected by rain the whole weekend, and there's no rain. But this is this kind of new normal, isn't it? I know it's different for you. It's different for everybody because of everything that's going on in our world today.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it's unfortunate that we're not playing baseball, but it's unfortunate that our that we're having a national crisis right now. That a lot of people's livelihood, a lot of people's health issues are being tested. And, for us, it's just about kind of following protocol and doing what we're asked to do, and to make sure that we can relay that to our team as well. Of course, we'd like to be playing. There's no doubt we've got a great team. We've got a team that we enjoy being around every day. So at this point, we're just trying our best just to stay connected and do what we can and do our part.
Would you say, David, as best as can be expected, given the circumstances, that your guys get it right now? They kind of understand these uncharted waters that we're all having to deal with right now, that they kind of have a good grasp of how different as well as how serious all of this is?
I hope so. And I really believe they do. They come from great families. They're educated. They understand much more about it being a bigger picture than playing baseball right now. Initially, I can honestly say we didn't understand it, neither did they. We were shut down for 2 weeks, but we thought we were still going to practice. So we were looking at how we're going to schedule our pitching, how we're going to schedule practices as far as getting live at bats. And then we were in Group 3 during batting practice and found out the College World Series was shut down. And then at that point, there was a ton of disappointment, a ton of just guys felt like everything that they put into this season is possibly coming to an end. And we basically had to stop practice and just really review worldwide what's going on and how we can help and how we can just do our part. So initially, I wouldn't say that any of us understood it, especially our players, and then the disappointment set in. But I think as this has grown and there's more information, there's more exposure, I think our players are smart enough to understand that we've got to do our part.
Safe to say that maybe the frustration or the bewilderment there on the part of your guys is accented, given that you were 14-3, that you were playing good baseball, that you had another series to go before conference play began, but all of the pieces look to be starting to fall into place for what could have been a really memorable season?
I think, first of all, they really liked each other and they liked being around each other. They love coming to the ballpark. They love working with their coaches. Our support staff has been so great with them. We've added some new people there, and we can visit about them as well. But, I just think that piece of it. And then you put together a team that likes each other with great chemistry. We've had 12 freshmen that have contributed, so the future looks great. And we're winning with young players, with a great mixture of some older players, including some veterans on the mound, as well as a couple of outfielders and then DJ returning. So just a great mix. And I really just and I think this is what they appreciated more than anything, is they really enjoyed the success of each other's performances. So if a player had a great day, they were truly, genuinely excited for him. And that's hard to get at times when we live in a selfish environment, a selfish world. But our players really get that, and they really appreciated the day that a player would have, and really recognize that with each other. And so I think that was why it was so enjoyable. Nothing's perfect. We weren't even close to perfect. We had so many things that we could see where we were going to continue to get better. And we'd have a setback, but I wasn't too worried about this team with a loss because I didn't feel like it was going to linger. I didn't feel like we were going to point fingers. I felt like they could learn from it and we move on. And that's where we were in the season. And it's just unfortunate we're not playing.
Other than the things that you mentioned about the team chemistry and how they all were, bonded and together from them, what might have impressed you from your guys that perhaps you weren't 100% sure about going into the season? Like you said, there was still a ways to go and there was still more building to be done, but something that emerged through the first 17 ball games that impressed you that you weren't 100% sure was going to be there when the season began.
I will say this, and I'm going to take another step a little even deeper into the fall. When we would have our individual work or even in our team segment, guys were hanging around a lot. They were hanging around in the dugout. They just wanted to talk. They wanted to be around the coaches. And we're not talking about one or two, three guys. We're talking half the team at times, either in the cage, in the bullpen, helping each other. So you could really sense a group that likes the competition, that likes being at the ballpark. And then when you look up and probably the one thing that stood out to me more than anything early on is the opening weekend at Rice. And we have a young man, Cam Williams, who has worked really hard and potentially could have started that opening weekend. He didn't. He didn't play the entire opening weekend. But every single day in our batting practice and during our fungo sessions at Rice, he put his head down. He took ground balls. He was soaking wet from sweat. He did everything possible to just keep working. And I think that says so much about this team is that it's not going to always be in your favor. It's not going to always you're not going to always have that opportunity to be 4 for 4 and be the hero of the day. But when you have guys like that, just keep working and understanding that if I do this, I'm going to have opportunity. And I couldn't have been more thrilled when we came off the bench with him against UT San Antonio, and he gets a RBI double and really changes the outcome of the game. And ever since then, he's really taken off. And so he's a great example of this team of being ready for their opportunity. I think the other thing would have to be Zubia being able to play first base every day, because that has opened the door for some other guys to get some time. Maybe they're not ready defensively, or they are, but we need to get them a number of at-bats so they have so we can find out who they are. And you look at Doug Hodo, if you just look at his offensive numbers, you'd say, well, that wasn't that impressive. But at the end of the day, his on base percentage was really good. Great defense that can play all three outfield positions and was getting valuable experience. And then you look at Peyton Powell, who gets an opportunity, not many at-bats, but it gives us information going into the conference play that we can count on this young man in either a pinch hit or in some type of capacity, knowing that he has some experience or at least some at-bats under his belt. So I think those pieces continuing to come together, watching the versatility of Eric Kennedy, that he can hit in the 1, 2, 3, 4 hole, or he can go down in the 7 hole, and it doesn't matter to Eric. All he wants to do is compete and help this team win. And then so consistent with their starting pitching with Bryce and just a huge start for Ty Madden. How hard he's worked to become that very reliable Saturday starter. And then the story of Pete Hansen. Pete didn't give up a single thing up to this point. And Andre Duplantier coming in and moving himself in the closer role. Trey Faltini looks like he can be that guy every day at shortstop as a freshman. So it's not just one thing. I mean, I can continue. We have had so many unique things happening from old to young, and just the camaraderie of coming together. You have no idea how many games we were going to win, but the process and the progression was there, and you could see it, and you knew it was going to continue.
This will kind of lead us toward the future and the unknown of the future and all that sort of stuff. But let me start with the knowns. What do you and your staff say? What are the instructions now for your guys on what they have to do to try to stay in shape, to try to stay healthy, to try to stay fit before we even get into what the future in 2021 will hold for your program. The guys in the here and now, what's the ongoing marching orders for what they need to be doing?
Well, I'll say this: it's kind of business as usual from a different approach. In other words, I've always managed the team. Our coaches have worked their areas and worked directly with their groups. But you go with strength conditioning. I'm not telling them what to do in strength conditioning. Matt Couch is. He's very good at it. We hired him to be good at to do that job. If you look at our training department and Tom Mendez and his staff, they're still having communications with our players. Then you look at Katie McInnes and she's our dietitian that is continuing to feed information to them. And then you have Drew handling academics and that coordination with me, the coaches. And so it's been business as usual, just a different way of approaching it because of the crisis that we're in. But I'm just impressed with our entire staff. So I'm not having to go in and say what's happening with strength and conditioning or where are we with nutrition. These people are taking care of it. Our support staff has been incredible, feeding any type of information that is pertinent for our players. And so that's allowed me and the coaches just to circle through our roster. We basically have them in 4 groups. And so for 3 days, it's my job for group 1. And then we just bump that for the next 3 days with group 2. And so every coach is having some type of dialogue with the players. And I think that's important, not only coming from me, but from the entire staff. So, yeah, and as far as any type of protocol that the nation's doing, we're leaving that to the experts, and we're just trying to relay that information as well. We are doing some things where we're challenging our players a little bit to be a little more creative, kind of like how you had to be a little creative to get on this call. I mean, so you can do some other things. It's sprint work, but it's in the street. It's not at the track. It's doing some different potential same body lifts, but in different ways in your garage. Just being creative and staying active, and then trying to look at video of professional players, your own video, just for reference and a good time to do some mirror drills or to just do some T work. And so they're just going to have to change what their routine is, but they have to continue to have routines or they're going to get very complacent, very stagnant. And so that's what we're trying to avoid.
I would certainly be remiss if I didn't ask you about the NCAA's ruling, because that had everybody talking this week about the ruling to restore the season of eligibility for spring sports. I know you've mentioned that this is a plus, this is a win deal for you, despite what anybody else would say about what was the headline in the Statesman this day about a big math problem. I mean, your approach kind of has been, I'll worry about the math. Right now, the first and foremost thing, I get the feeling that you were relieved and happy to see the exact way that the ruling came down for the NCAA.
I think it's definitely a victory for us because it puts the ball back in our court of how to handle it, as opposed to being told what we can or can't do. And so there is a little bit of a numbers issue, but I think we're in better shape than most people will be. But I still don't know. There's a lot of unknown with the draft. I'm really ecstatic that our seniors at least have the option. They have a choice to say, I'm going to come back if it makes sense for them, if it financially works for them. They're all going to graduate. So it's very unique, but at least we have the opportunity to talk to our players and either help in one way of pulling those seniors back in and making sense of it or not. But the cool thing is that we're not being told how we have to do it. It's how we feel like is best for our program. And I think that's a great victory for us. And I just think the NCAA always gets a bad rap, no matter what. Their job is to truly protect student athletes. And I think they did the right thing here, and I applaud them for it.
Uh, the other thing that folks will bring to mind is the issue of how you manage a crowded dugout, so to speak, with the seniors who might return, those who you might return, as opposed to all returning players retaining that season of eligibility and incoming freshmen as well. How much thought have you given to how and when you'll manage that based on the feedback you're getting from your seniors who might or might not be back next season?
Well, it's like when you get in season and you start playing with your lineup every single day. That's what's happening right now, every single day of looking at the roster. Now, if you look at the existing team, I think we have 10 draft eligible players. That's excluding the seniors. So if you say there's 13 players, we take 3 out of the mix or 4 out of the mix there because they're moving on. Then you have these other 10 players. Now they haven't had the opportunity to potentially position themselves to be draft eligible, to be in a spot where they feel like it's worth signing. So now we're dealing with that issue of these are kids that are possibly going to move on, that this year it's a good chance they return. The only thing that some may do is have an opportunity to sign a free agency. So there adds another piece. Then you look at the incoming kids, pretty much in the same boat that we thought it was. We're probably, with our 14 kids, you're looking at potentially 5 kids, maybe 6 that are in a category that, potentially would sign. And then you look at the way the signing bonus is deferred. And so that's going to change some thoughts potentially. But I'm just pleased that we get to do the puzzle. It's not going to always be the easiest conversation, but at the end of the day, it's going to be the best thing for the University of Texas, but everybody's in the same boat. The one thing that we're dealing with that some others may have bigger issues is we only have 4 seniors and probably only 3 are considering returning, whereas some other teams may have 8 to 10 seniors and really creates a logjam. And I also think when you look at these 3, potentially a catcher, which we didn't have a catcher in this class, potentially a couple of outfielders, which this class is a little less outfielder filled. It's much more about infielders and pitching. So that could work out really well for us. But then just kind of piecing it all together, we're going to start probably somewhere between 43 and 46 players. Every year we start 40 to 43 anyhow to get down to 35, and now we'll have the option to get down to 38.
Tell me what you think about this too. I've also heard it said that this could be a boon, almost a gold find or a gold mine, so to speak, for junior colleges because of the options that some of the other student athletes at other institutions, yours included, might wind up going that route, as well as the incoming freshmen who might go that route, and that junior colleges could see a big boom out of this. Do you see it in similar terms?
Add one more piece, the high school player that knew he was going to get drafted and was going to sign, and now he doesn't have that option and he's not ready for a Division I academically. So he's going to be inserted potentially in a JC. I think it's a definite trickle effect. Whatever happens in Power Fives could potentially push some kids down into mid-majors or transfer into another conference and that still hasn't been determined, but we're still looking at the one-time transfer, whether that's going to be approved or not. If that's approved and you have a player that is not necessarily pushed out, but maybe his money changes and then he decides he wants to move on, then he could potentially push someone out of a mid-major, which then somebody could then push someone out of a JC or D2. So you're going to see this effect not only with the Power Fives, but throughout college baseball. And it's not going to only be this year. The other group that could be affected are the 21s that are already committed to schools. And some people have agreed, where they have some verbals already that there should be hard conversations coming up. And I just think there's going to be a lot of movement. You need to be prepared for it. And I truly know that we're going to do it with integrity. We're going to do it with dignity for our players, whatever we have to do. It's going to be about the best situation for the University of Texas and how we can help each individual player.
Final thing here. How is Susan handling you just being omnipresent and around all the time? Is the dynamic working out okay there with you being home all the time?
Well, we built 3 houses, so we survived that. So I think she can survive me. We do a lot of neighborhood walks, but we do have a little spacing, and so we can have good movement when we need to. And I like to be outside. I'll work in the yard, in the garage, just messing around. And we've been busy. We've actually started watching some movies, which isn't a part of our spring. So things have actually been great at home. My daughter's pregnant and due in 2 weeks, and we're not so sure we'll even get a chance to see her. My son's in Houston working out of the house, and so it hasn't been all bad. We've actually caught our breath and had some enjoyment, some good times together already.
That's great. By the way, I just had a granddaughter born last Sunday. So it's a great thing. Even all the pictures from remote are great.
Congratulations.
Thanks. David, I appreciate the time. Obviously, we'll look for better news and better things happening on down the road. Be well, family be well, and obviously we'll be in touch as the days and weeks and stuff roll on forward. But thanks for joining us.
All right, Craig. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
You bet. That's Longhorns head baseball coach David Pierce here on TexasSports.com.